for spending some time with me this afternoon. What I'd like to do is, if you have any questions or just want to talk about something, please interrupt me, because it's much more interesting to have an interactive discussion rather than me up here just reading from my slides. So please let me know if there's anything that you want to talk about. I am the president-elect of IEEE, the whole big IEEE, 400,000 members around the world. That means I'll be president next year. And everybody asks me, am I the first woman? And the answer is no, I'm the third. The first woman president was 1996. Her name was Martha Sloan. And then in 2007, Leah Jameson. So for once in my life, I'm not the first woman to do something in engineering. So before I get started, I love talking with students and I love seeing you all here. And if you are not yet a member of IEEE, I want to encourage you to join. IEEE, I started when I was a student. I've been a member for, like 5,000 years, and it's been a tremendous opportunity for me. And I want to say this kind of delicately. When you join a company, your company likes you just fine because you do a good job and you help their business and you drive their company forward. But they really don't care about you as a person, because when times change, they'll move you somewhere else, or they'll let you go, or they do what they do because they're companies. That's fine, that's business. But with the IEEE, you'll be part of a family forever. And IEEE people that you meet now, you'll be connected with them throughout your entire career. Around the world, you'll meet people. And there's always support for continuing education, for learning the latest technologies, for just cooperating with people. As you graduate, you can become what's called a young professional. And young professionals organize all types of social activities, micro-volunteering, community events. It's just a really, really neat organization. And so if you haven't thought about joining IEEE, I encourage you to. If you already have, when you graduate, please stay with us. Be sure and ask your company if they pay your IEEE membership when you get your first job, because a lot of times companies will pay that membership for you, so you don't have to shell out the $100 or whatever it is. So that's my commercial for IEEE. I want to say thank you, because IEEE is a very prestigious organization, and we love the opportunity to meet with small groups, universities, the next generation of engineers. And what I'm going to talk about today is something that's a little bit different. This is not a specific engineering topic, but it affects all of us as engineers. It affects all of us as members of society. I'm going to talk to you about what's happening with the internet and with internet governance, and how IEEE is getting involved, and how it affects you, and how maybe you can get involved in the future. And my passion for this started about 35 years ago when I started in the semiconductor industry, and it continues to grow with my work at IEEE. So as you know, the internet has delivered and will continue to deliver tremendous innovation, economic growth, and societal good globally. And you probably don't remember days when there was not an internet, or when there weren't mobile phones, and when there weren't all of the things that we take for granted today. But things have changed so dramatically because of the internet that we can't imagine our lives being any other way. And of course, you've heard the term Internet of Things, which is where everything is connected and communicating and giving us information so we make better decisions and build better products. It's opening the most exciting opportunities for new services that nobody would have ever dreamed of before. Improving productivity and efficiency, real-time decision-making. So if you are able to have devices out there scanning the environment, telling you what's going on, you can make better decisions in real time rather than having to go and do research or spend time figuring out things yourself. There are some amazing, innovative user experiences that are happening. If you've tried any of the, well, I had a blast. I bought a pair of Google Glass when they first came out to the public, and it was really cool. But then I became really self-conscious, because when you're sitting in an airport and you're talking to yourself and flipping around and watching your little camera, somebody came over and said, "What are you doing? Is that Google Glass? Is that really cool or what?" But so I don't wear those anymore, because it just made me feel self-conscious. But it's really cool. So when you experience these things, you get an idea of what the future is going to be like, where we are so connected to each other and to all of the things. Recently, I was in Japan, and I met with the Japan Minister of Science and Technology. And in Japan, they have a concept that they call Society 5.0. So Society 1.0 was when we were hunters and gatherers, and then we became more educated. We started the Industrial Revolution. We went into what we used to call the Information Age, which is where we are today. Society 5.0 is where the internet will connect all of us, and we will be societally stronger because of it. So people will have opportunities that they've never had before. And you're all going to experience that within the next 10 years, if not sooner. If you've heard of the smart grid and smart cities, these modernize and optimize the power grid. So when you generate power, if you have a solar generator and you generate that power and you don't use it all, you can put it back out on the grid for other people to use. And the power companies will actually pay you a tiny bit of money to do that. And it is a tiny bit, trust me, you're not going to get rich generating solar energy in your backyard. But it just shows how the smart grid will be able to balance energy needs. When you're in a hot time in the summer and everybody goes to work in buildings, the power can shift to air conditioning in those buildings, and you don't really need it at home when you're not there. Then when everybody goes home and you're back in your house, then the power can shift back to homes to keep the air conditioning systems going without brownouts and so forth. E-health saves lives by giving healthcare providers access to technologies that their patients need without limitations on how it's shared across an end-to-end infrastructure. The good example is if you're wearing a medical device, data can be sent over the airwaves to your doctor. You don't have to get in your car and go to the doctor's office and sit and wait. You can have real-time monitoring of how you're doing. And this is probably not as exciting to you guys because you're all nice and young, but as you get a little bit older and you pay more attention to your health, then it becomes very, very important. It'll be important to your parents as well. We want to be able to stay in our homes as long as we possibly can. So if our houses become smart and take care of us, then we have a better quality of life for a long time. You know, however, with more objects being networked together and they're capable of sensing and communicating with each other, new issues are arising. And these are some issues that I'm going to talk about in just a minute. And they're on this slide too. Cybersecurity, privacy, identity management, these things are very scary and they're very, very real. And they're getting worse all the time. The headline today was 500 million Yahoo accounts were compromised. But that was in 2014, which was kind of goofy for them to put that statement out today. But constantly, our credit cards are being compromised. Last week, some company in India, I think, was hitting my credit card. And so my credit card company canceled my card, and I had to wait and reinstate everything. So all of these issues are being challenged, and we need to figure out solutions to them. As engineers, we can. Let me talk a little bit about IEEE and our heritage with the internet. So we have served as a catalyst for internet innovation for a very, very long time. Technical experts from all kinds of areas throughout IEEE and throughout the world have developed the internet interoperability. In particular, IEEE's standards help make the internet work. Probably the most famous ones are Ethernet and Wi-Fi. These are IEEE standards. I'm very, very proud of standards because I was the president of IEEE standards for a couple of years. There's an organization called IETF, the Internet Engineering Task Force, and they do more of the internet protocols as well. So all of these standards are what make the internet work. If you went into, and I'm sure your university has a subscription to IEEE's Explore Digital Library. There are 400 million articles in there that you can access. If you searched the keyword internet in the conferences database of IEEE, it would yield 500 conferences strictly on the internet. And if you asked the Explore Digital Library for articles on the internet, you'd get more than 100,000 papers, 100,000 publications that the IEEE offers that all deal with this wonderful thing we call the internet. One of the things that we think is extremely important is that the internet remain open to everybody. And I'll talk about an issue coming up, but there's a movement by countries to protect themselves against bad things happening. And what that would do is then wall off countries and cause businesses to have problems and cause the free flow of information to be stifled. So one of IEEE's missions is to make sure that that does not happen. About 2.5 years ago, IEEE took a long, hard look at the challenges of the internet, how our way of life is being threatened by those issues of privacy, security, internet governance, phishing, spying, identity theft, hacking. How many in here have been a victim of some type of identity theft or credit card fraud or hacking? Nobody? Oh, yes, and it's very annoying. It's a first world problem, of course, but it's also very frightening if things go really, really wrong. We at IEEE, all of our engineers and technologists, we asked ourselves, what can we do to help solve this problem? So what we did is we created what we call the IEEE Internet Initiative. We also call that 3I. I was fortunate enough to have been the person to convince the IEEE Board of Directors that we need to invest in this. And then I went on to chair the Internet Initiative Committee for the first year and drove its strategic plan. I turned it over to a very capable gentleman last year from ST Microelectronics. He now runs his own company. But we're making some really great strides in bringing technologists to help solve these problems that I just talked about. I'm going to talk a lot more about that coming up. The purpose of the IEEE Internet Initiative is to bring together the technologists, because we're the ones that understand how the internet works, how the devices work, how the Internet of Things work, with policymakers who try to solve the problems of society in other ways. And policymakers do not necessarily understand anything about technology or how things work. We had a recent seminar with staff from the White House telling them what is the Internet of Things and what does it mean to you. It was very revealing because their job is to make good policy and keep us safe and do the right things from a government perspective. Their job is not to engineer the Internet or keep us safe or create the Internet of Things. So this is the whole underlying principle of the Internet Initiative. Take the technologists and the policymakers and put them together so that they make the best policy. And that is our mission. We're doing some really neat things so far. The IEEE Internet Initiative brings opportunities to participate in public policy discussions and interface directly with policy experts, boosting the technology developers' awareness of policy, which is really important too. Because when we develop technology, we ought to think about the societal impacts and the policy implications of it as well. I remember the paper that I wrote in college that I was most proud of was all about bioengineering. And bioengineering was brand new back then. But the premise was, just because we can do something, does that mean we should? So some of the examples that were happening, 35, 40 years ago, scientists and engineers were blending plant cells and animal cells, and they called them plantimals. And it was really fascinating, and then people were laughing, do you have to tie down your lawn so it doesn't walk away? But there were some really deep ethical issues about mixing animals and plants, and should we be doing those kinds of things? And so as we develop technology, we have to realize that people will use it for good, and they'll use it for bad. And there are some things that maybe we should never do. Maybe we shouldn't genetically engineer a new smallpox, genetic warfare kinds of things. Maybe we shouldn't even do these things. Some scientists say we should. I don't know. I don't have the answers. But my point is that we need to think about these things as technologists. So the IEEE 3I program has provided this platform that encourages good policy that's informed by the technical community and the voices in industry that will fuel the internet innovation, sustain it, and promote market growth. We provide a neutral, credible forum because IEEE has a very strong brand name and a lot of respect. And this helps ensure that trustworthy technology solutions and best practices are put in place in guiding internet policy. Regardless of the specific areas of internet-related technology or policy that you might get involved in, nearly everyone has a stake in the future of internet governance and the related issues of cybersecurity and privacy. Both technologists and policymakers can benefit from learning more about each other's perspectives, the challenges we face and they face, and the opportunities. For technologists, an advanced awareness of public policy issues should lead to the development of sound technical solutions and best practices. For policymakers, access to technologists and an improved grasp of technology will help them clarify the trade-offs inherent in the choices that they make when they set public policy. The whole world can benefit from the trustworthy technology solutions and best practices that we derive through debate, bidirectional dialogue with both of these arenas and information exchange. Global conferences, workshops, and online collaboration on internet governance, cybersecurity, and privacy all enable this process. Because again, this is not just a problem where we live, it's a problem all around the world. So in 3I, what we've done is open the door for IEEE to have a growing presence in events like the annual World Summit on the Information Society Forum. So you may think of IEEE as technical societies and engineers, but this is a huge step forward for us to be involved in public policy and talking to people that we never did before and getting ourselves out there to make a bigger influence in the world. This event, the World Summit on Information Society, which is WSIS, it's the largest gathering of the ICT community, which is Information and Communications Technologies. And it focuses on making the Information Society accessible to everyone. If you've ever been to China, China has the internet, but because the Chinese government wants to protect their citizens, you cannot use Facebook. You cannot use Google, and that's partly a Google decision too, that if there are human rights issues going on, Google will refuse to cooperate with certain countries. But it's really interesting to think about the internet and the fact that we are all one humanity. We're one society. We're not separate ones trying to compete for knowledge. We'd like to be able to share it with each other. This WSIS forum took place in Geneva, and there were 1,800 global leaders from over 150 companies representing government ministries, civil society, industry, academia, and the technical community. IEEE facilitated 3 of the 5 tracks, and we hosted a thematic workshop on internet governance, security, privacy, and the ethical dimensions of ICTs in 2030. The workshop explored the social consequences of emerging technologies and the aspects that need to be addressed now in order to ensure a beneficial and productive interconnected world in 2030. Oleg Logvinov, he's the guy that I turned the committee over to. He delivered IEEE's intervention, which is basically our statement. Intervention always sounds like there's, I don't know, drugs involved or something, but that's the word they use internationally is intervention when you're putting your position forward. At the high-level policy segment of the meeting, and he charged all the attendees with accepting the responsibility of connecting the world's citizens and achieving sustainable development goals. This next thing that we participated in was really, really interesting. So as you can imagine, in today's U.S. government, the executive branch really can't work with Congress at this point. Things just aren't very amenable between those two. So what the executive branch is doing, they've turned to NGOs, which are non-government organizations, and groups like the IEEE to partner on key initiatives. And one of these efforts is called Global Connect. So on April 14th, the World Bank and the U.S. Department of State co-hosted a high-level event at the World Bank Executive Boardroom to support the Global Connect initiative. This initiative is an effort to bring 1.5 billion people online by the year 2020. So in 4 years, 1.5 billion people online. The World Bank and the U.S. Department of State, they were joined by finance ministers from all continents, along with technology CEOs, NGO presidents, and the heads of major multinational development banks. The day prior, on April 13th, IEEE and the World Bank convened 160 of the top connectivity network engineers, regulatory experts, and representatives from government to develop a plan of action for how to meet the Global Connect's ambitious goals. So what's interesting for you to think about as you're an engineering student or wanting to get involved beyond the field of engineering, there's a whole big world out there that what you do, you can be involved in public policy. You can get involved in changing the world in ways way beyond technology. So the technology that you develop, you can use that to change the way that people live in other countries and all around the world. It's really kind of an inspiring thought. What happened at that Global Connect meeting was experts came up with surface fiber maps, current projects, and potential projects so that everybody was aware of the situation. They then created a roadmap that contained detailed region-specific action plans because each region is going to have a different goal in mind. If you go to sub-Saharan Africa, probably infrastructure is something that you'd want to work on first. If you go to Europe, it would be building an economy on top of your already strong infrastructure. When I say infrastructure, I mean things like fiber, satellite communications, cell towers, anything that will keep power going, the power grid, even water systems and air conditioning. If you get a chance to go to India, oftentimes you'll be in a building and the power will flicker because they need to continue to invest in their smart grid and their power grid in order to keep the power going. Yeah, actually, my last speech in India, we were in a room like this, and the lights went completely out. And guess what? I just kept on talking. It was great. My kids always tease me, geez, Mom, all you do is talk for a living. And I say, yeah, and then they pay me. It's pretty cool, isn't it? Sorry, that's just a side thing. My kids love to tease me, but I tease them back. So some of the things that also came out of this roadmap included recommendations for which areas and populations to focus on, which technical solutions were needed in each different region, and how to get past regulatory and tax barriers. So this is where the government comes in, putting regulations and tax requirements in that are prohibitive to companies and startups. That's a real problem in the internet these days. And finally, they successfully integrated connectivity into country development plans. So how would the country have connectivity as well as from country to country? So this event was a huge success. IEEE is now planning the next Global Connect event with the World Bank, the U.S. Department of State, the Office of Science, Technology, and Policy, the People-Centered Internet, which is another organization, and many other organizations together. So through our Internet initiative, we have enabled IEEE to play a leading role in this vital effort. I can't remember. Yeah, this is the one where our people were sitting in with all kinds of heads of state and everything. They met John Kerry. He was speaking at this about open internet. So, it's kind of cool. You get to meet some celebrities in the government. So in the Internet Initiative today, we have a lot of position papers and white papers that were being developed right now. Anything from machine-readable privacy agreements. Every time you click on something that says, I agree to the privacy policy, have you ever read those? One day I was totally bored and I actually read Facebook's privacy policy because they had just updated it. And it was like 20 pages long of all of this stuff. And we know, I don't read them anymore, and so there's opportunity here for some standards in those privacy agreements to say, these are the basic things and everybody agrees to the same thing so that things don't get snuck in there. I don't really believe that there's a conspiracy that these agreements that you agree to without reading are going to do anything harmful to you. But it's possible that they could say, without your knowing, oh, I'm going to sell your information, or I'm going to track where you are. I don't care if people track my life isn't that interesting. I don't care if they spy on me. But other people do have privacy concerns, and they say, leave me alone. Protect my private interests. Some of the other papers, end-to-end trust and security in the Internet of Things. So in the Internet of Things, if you have your medical devices talking to your doctor and all of your medical information is going out there ready for the hackers to steal, that's a big deal. And especially people who don't trust the devices and don't trust the Internet, they're not going to buy those devices. So let's say your startup company has this fantastic new Internet of Things application, some little wearable that's really cool. You can't sell it if people are afraid that it's going to harm them and harm their privacy or break into their bank accounts. So we really are working on papers that will help address that as well. This last one's interesting, government-sponsored hacking. Okay, every government is spying on everybody else and everybody else's government. It just so happened that the United States got caught. But this is going on all around. So what we want to do is write papers that talk about this and bring these issues to light about what's right and what's fair. And there's a balance between protecting your citizens versus invading their privacy. So these are some of the kinds of things that we're working on in the Internet Initiative. These are some of the activities that we have recently. We have what we call ETAP, Experts in Technology and Policy. And we held forums in Beijing and in Tel Aviv, Israel this year. We have another one coming up in Guadalajara. Certainly we do them in the US. And there's information that gets recorded that you can see later on. You don't have to go attend these, but if you'd like to, maybe NCSU would sponsor you. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not committing dollars. But there are some really, really neat forums here if you're interested in this type of activity. So what I want to talk about now are 3 points. First of all, technologists created the internet and the technologies, and they will continue to be leaders in shaping its future, or you will be leaders in shaping the future of the internet, including its viability and effectiveness of the proposed governance structures. So there's an organization called ICANN, I-C-A-N-N. They were the organization that was responsible for passing out all of the URL addresses. And that was owned by the United States. And recently, the United States gave that up and said, here, it should be a global type of an operation. So these kinds of things you don't really think about when you're studying for your exams next week. But these are things that affect the world and affect you as a user of the internet. Technologists understand the dynamics of technology evolution and how rapidly it advances in all of these areas that impact the internet. What we could do is create incremental advancements that could offer some short-term solutions for some of the privacy issues and security issues and governance issues. But pure innovation and brand new technologies could also open the path for fundamentally new solutions that could address the concerns today even more efficiently and directly. To the extent that sensitive problem areas can be addressed through technology, we could use the lessons we've learned already in order to address them from the very beginning. But as technologists, we can do either one. We can put a short-term solution in place, or we can put an innovative solution in place. And that way, we have the opportunity to solve the problem short-term as well as prevent problems from happening in the future. Technologists, you and I, we are about innovation. We're about change, and we're about change for the better. I'm not talking to a bunch of hackers here who are in the underground black internet kinds of things. I'm talking to all of you as real technologists, and we're here to do good things for each other. We work in a multitude of technical domains and industries, and we're from all regions all over the world. If you ever get a chance to travel, I encourage you to sit down and talk to people from other countries. Ask them about their religion, ask them about what they think, ask them about their food, and what it's like to be an engineer in their country. And what you'll find that I think is really exciting is everybody is so different, and we're all the same at the same time. And as engineers, we kind of see beyond the boundaries of different religions and different countries and different philosophies. We're all engineers together, and that bonds us. So when you meet engineers from other countries, you just immediately have this feeling of camaraderie and understanding of what we do with our lives. It's really cool. So our work is to advance technology for the benefit of humanity. That, of course, is IEEE's tagline, Advancing Technology for Humanity. And this leads me to my second point. My second point is a challenge to all of you and the rest of my technical colleagues. We must be even more mindful in integrating the interest of society as we support the evolution of the internet and work together to build new frameworks for addressing the issues at hand. Whatever we do, we must not only advance solutions for seemingly just technical problems, but we also have to advance solutions for societal problems as well. So important societal values must be acknowledged explicitly and taken into account at the earliest stages of technology development. Technologists cannot just innovate and leave collateral, unresolved issues behind for the politicians and social advocates to sort through. But also, leaders with no technical background must understand the benefits and the limits of technology as they address the social issues related to the use of technology. So fairly recently, the European Commission came up with this concept of the right to be forgotten. So a bunch of policymakers said, you have the right to be completely erased from the internet. Think about that from an engineering perspective. That's not possible. That is totally impossible. There's something called the Wayback Machine, the Internet Wayback Machine. Have you ever seen this? It's totally cool. You put in some year or some topic, and you can go see what people's websites looked like in 1985 or in 1995, and you can see what kinds of information was there. All of that is still around. So the idea that you can be completely erased in a digital era just doesn't exist. So if the policymakers had gotten information from technologists, they would have changed that policy, I think, to be a little more realistic. So in one sentence, we must go forward jointly to better integrate the needs of society into technology development as a forethought, not as an afterthought. This is not a trivial endeavor, and I know this, because differences in the cultures of policymakers and technologists are real. We're different kinds of people, we're different kinds of animals, we have different missions, we really are different. But bridges are necessary, and they do exist. As we've seen by various examples all around the world, including those of the Internet Initiative of IEEE, investment in research and engineering continues to proliferate because governments are increasingly recognizing the benefits of policy formation tempered by the collaboration with the engineering community. We're seeing a lot of this starting to happen more and more. Such examples as these show that policymakers and technologists working together can make a difference. In an increasingly populated planet, there are 7 billion people on this planet. It's staggering to think about. Engineers, we will be vital to shaping society to sustain us for the future. I want to take time to apologize to this generation for the mess that we've left you. We've left you global warming, we've left you terrorism, we've left you some really awful kinds of things, but we know you'll be able to solve them. People are afraid of all kinds of things happening, and what I'm really afraid of is plastic. And that sounds kind of funny, but there's an article that came out recently. Studies show that by the year 2050, there will be more plastic in the oceans than fish by weight. And so every time I have a plastic bottle, because I'm not allowed to bring water through the airport, every time I have things wrapped in plastic, I feel really guilty. I'm doing bad things. So engineers, I don't know what kind, need to solve this problem and get rid of plastic. You may have heard France is the first country to ban plastic cups, which is a really great start. Yeah, the billion cups or something that get thrown away. So let's think about how we can solve the plastic issue along with all of the other terrible things that we've left you guys. Sorry about that. But probably you'll leave a mess for your kids too. It's just the way we go. Sorry about that. Okay. The third idea that I'd like to impart today is that the value of the internet must be preserved and enhanced, and I alluded to this at the beginning. As the internet evolves, its value has the potential to be much greater than its value is even today. As an example, the benefits of IoT and cloud-enabled big data and artificial intelligence are profoundly beyond impressive benefits that we've enjoyed thus far. And I learned at a conference recently, my presentation was about artificial intelligence, and that's an old-fashioned term. It's now called computational intelligence. And this is the field of things like intelligent robots and intelligent autonomous vehicles, and where computers are making all kinds of really amazing decisions for us. So networks are really important, and the internet, of course, is a network. And I don't know if you've heard of Metcalfe's law or Reed's law or Beckstrom's law. These are laws of the value of networks, and they each present a different mathematical expression that approximates the value of a network. But what they have in common is a fundamental principle that the potential value of a network is enabled principally by connectivity. So networks do not have value without great connectivity. The best example of the value of a network is the old-fashioned fax machine, which I haven't had a fax machine in years. A fax machine by itself does absolutely nothing. A fax machine connected to a second fax machine, that's kind of cool. You can send one thing back and forth. But if you have a billion fax machines connected to each other, now you have an incredibly powerful network, and that's what we have in the internet today. So governance concepts that limit the connectivity of the internet may reduce its value. And furthermore, the internet is unique in human history precisely because of its incredibly powerful promise that many may communicate with many others without intermediaries and without asking for permission. And technologists have been serving as guardians of the value of the internet and its future, and we're already hard at work on solving extensive international engagement, collaborating, solving, optimizing, implementing, and improving aspects of the internet. And what this really means is when governments now are trying to protect their populations, like I mentioned earlier, by saying, I want data sovereignty. This term means that a country says any data that is produced in my country or comes through my country has to stay there. What this means is digital commerce is really constrained. So if you're a startup company and you want to sell something online and you have to follow that any data you have lives in a different country and then it lives in another country and you have to follow all these conflicting regulatory requirements, you may just say, forget it, I'm not going to do this kind of business. And the effect of being able to sell your products to other people goes down dramatically. If you're thinking about things in a pure information and research and understanding human growth, if you can communicate with someone in another country freely and you can talk about things, you can solve problems, that's very powerful, and we can do that today. I have three not brand new, over the last couple of years, three friends, young professional engineers, one from Tunisia, one from Pakistan, and one from Egypt. And we freely discuss things like, tell me what Ramadan is. I learned all about Ramadan. And my friend asked me, tell me about Christmas. She's I think, in her fourth year of engineering in Tunisia. She says, I don't understand this Christmas thing. And so because of that, we don't change each other's opinions of our religions or our beliefs or our cultures, but we learn from each other. And it's a very enriching experience. Being able to talk to an engineer in Pakistan is really, really powerful because you know it's a difficult country to live in. There's a lot of political strife. Imagine now being able to talk to an engineer in Egypt where there's all types of government kinds of things going on. Turkey with their attempted overthrow of their government. But as engineers, when we talk to each other about how to solve engineering problems and how to solve societal problems, it's a very, very powerful thing that we want to preserve. So I mentioned earlier IEEE's mission, part of this IEEE Internet Initiative, is to ensure that countries don't have this idea of data sovereignty where there are walls built around the internet. I mentioned standards earlier. There are currently more than 7,000 specific international technical standards in place today that support the internet, 7,000 standards for the internet. Trying to accurately estimate the number of people who are involved in designing, manufacturing, operating, and administrating the internet all around the world is really challenging. There are perhaps 30 million individuals around the world who are skilled in information and communications technologies. And many of them participate in global standards development for the internet. If you do get an opportunity to join a standards committee, it's a really interesting experience. It may sound kind of boring at first, but it's a fascinating opportunity to work with people and set standards that can really raise the level of the playing field and let everybody participate in competing better. Standards are really cool. The IEEE Standards Association is one of these organizations. We have 7,000 members and more than 200,000 people every single day working on about 1,900 active standards in 160 countries. And we're just one of these organizations that develop standards for the internet. So technologists can understand a nation state's interest in economic growth and social prosperity. We know countries want their people to survive and thrive and really progress. So with events like this World Internet Conference, where we have technologists sitting down with policymakers, I really expect that international communities of technologists will work better to support governance structures. And we will be better at protecting the primary value of the internet and do so in a way that increasingly designs in safety, security, trust, privacy, freedom, dignity, participation, fairness, and prosperity for everyone. So, what I'd like to do in conclusion is kind of invite you to get involved in the IEEE Internet Initiative. So if there are any of these topics that impact you, think about, would I like to participate in that? Do you have topics that you've come across that you think we should address or that we should find experts to talk about and educate people? Are there any conferences or publications that would benefit you as we try and solve some of these problems? Do you know of some content out there, people who've proposed some really great solutions to security and privacy and governance that we should be able to put in a repository for everybody to see? Let us know. There are benefits to becoming part of the Internet Initiative. It's free. That's a good benefit. You don't have to do anything. You can simply go to the Internet Initiative website and read about these things and learn about them and just be a consumer. You can, if you want, come to some of these events and talk with the experts and really learn more about what public policy is going on and what kinds of things these lawmakers have in mind. There are surveys you can participate in, and we have a weekly newsletter kind of thing that comes out that talks about all the things that are going on in the world with respect to internet governance. And again, you may find this just really informational. You don't have to do anything. But if you'd like to participate in the conferences, be a speaker, we would love to have you. The website is internetinitiative.ieee.org, and everyone is welcome. And there's an email address as well, internetinitiative@ieee.org, that you can send queries to. So with that, I want to thank you very much for your time and your interest and listening to something that's probably way outside the realm of what you do every day.